So have we really dropped our nets and followed Christ? And that's what Sherwood Dell calls intentional discipleship. And she usefully identifies some other steps on the way to that. She calls these thresholds of initial conversion. And it begins actually with initial trust, and then spiritual curiosity, spiritual openness, spiritual seeking. And I can see that in terms of my own life. I was an adult convert. I went to Penn State as an atheist and was unbaptized. And there was a man that actually it was really my cousin who started to talk to me about philosophy, and that opened a certain spiritual curiosity for me. He was talking to me about Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It's an interesting book, and Buddhism and Taoism, and I got interested in these kinds of things. That was really a dimension of spiritual curiosity. So when a stranger came up to me and invited me to Bible study, I was like, okay, I'll give the Christian thing a try, like give him a platform and let him speak to that. I was curious. And as I heard more, I became more open. I was ready to hear more. If he stopped following up with me, I would have stopped going to Bible study. But he was engaged, and so I was engaged. And so I stuck with him. And then, we could have some spiritual seeking. And there was a point that came, there was a sort of turning point where I was like, not only am I open to this, I'm really interested. I want to learn more. I want to find out what this is all about. And that's more like spiritual seeking. Now, again, if the persecution came, I was hitting the road. I mean, I was not committed to this whole endeavor. It wasn't until a little bit later that I came to a place where I could really say, I'm a Christian. And I'm going to suffer for that. I'm going to persevere in that. I'm going to keep growing in that. I've got a lot to learn. I'm on the path. I believe. I believe in Jesus. I'm ready to follow him. I know him, and he knows me. So that was really a step of intentional discipleship. And then the traditional development usually starts with that. This is what we call the purgative way. And purgative means purifying. The way of, purgatory means purification, or the place of purification. So it's the place of purification where I start to die to myself and I start to live for Christ. And then as we move along the purgative way, we enter into the illuminative way, where we start to get more and more lights about virtue and the development of the gospel. And then the unitive way, where we really start to live in union with the will of God. We're really embodying that will. So that's what I sketch out for you in a little diagram here. Now, I used this diagram for a while, and when I draw it on the board, I drew it as a trajectory. Like if you throw a baseball and you throw it, it makes an arc and it lands somewhere, right? The landing place is what we talked about last week: love, holiness, the perfection of love, right? That's the landing place. That's what we're aiming at. And then I made it from blue to red because it's hot. It's hot up here. Love is fiery and intense. And we grow in intensity. We're kind of like lukewarm. We're even cold back here at the beginning. But as we get closer to Christ, who is the living flame of love, it gets more intense. It heats up. And then really the unitive way is kind of a fusion. I should be careful about that. But it's John Vianney calls it like two bits of wax that are so tightly bound together, you don't know where one ends and the other begins. So that's as distinct from, losing our identity. We never lose our identity. And that's the difference between a Christian understanding of union and a pantheist or a Buddhist or a New Age understanding of union, which is like the New Age would be the wax gets all melted down into nothing, and we become part of everything, and everything becomes part of us, and we lose ourselves completely in that. So that's not Christian. Christian is that we always maintain our identity, and yet we are so one with Christ that we have one will with him. So you might learn at some point in theology what's called the Nestorian heresy. And Nestorius thought Jesus himself was two persons and two natures that moved so perfectly together, it was as if they were one. So in other words, there was a divine Jesus and there was a human Jesus, and they were like totally united, so they always moved together. Now the church said, no, there's one person. There's one divine person, and there are two natures that are united in that one person. And we could have a whole theology class on this, which I don't want to do, but Nestorius's idea about Jesus, which was wrong, was right about what we are called to. We are called to have that kind of relationship with Jesus, that we move together. He moves and we move, and we have that union with him, and that movement is called the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the movement of, in fact, the Son and the Father, and we get caught up in that movement. Anyway, that's the unitive way, is when we're so united with him, truly one mind and one will, one heart, and yet we have our own uniqueness. We don't lose our own identity. So we can describe this now, as I said, those three thresholds: curiosity, openness, seeking, purgative way or intentional discipleship, and then illuminative way, and then unitive way. And the people in the illuminative way, and that includes some of you, maybe all of you anyway, certainly getting into that space. But these are the kind of people in your parish that do everything. They're like the 2% that are actually fully engaged and are, just batting 1,000. I mean, really engaged with the parish and doing so much good. And they just have this living relationship with Christ, which is so rich. And then, as I said, the unitive way, these are really your living saints, a Saint John Paul or a Saint Teresa of Calcutta, but in more humble ways. As you do like hospital ministry or a nursing home or like shut-ins, or you'll find saints. There are people in those situations that are genuine saints, and you'll find them there. Other places too, not just in that kind of radical suffering, but I wanted to contrast with a John Paul or a Teresa of Calcutta, who are super fruitful in the work that they do, who are making converts, whose word has a way of moving people into a confession of faith. It's living saints. That's the unitive way. But illuminative way are really engaged and mature Christians, really stable in their practice of the Christian life. They're not all over the place, in one day, out the next, halfway out the door, coming back in, giving their whole life and taking it back the next day. That's more like the purgative way. And the illuminative way is stabilizing. It's like, okay, I'm all in. I've experienced darkness. I've experienced failure. I've experienced suffering, and I'm all in. I'm still going. I'm committed. I've mature faith. I know the Lord. I love him. So that's what we're getting at there in the illuminative way.